Hi everyone, I want to thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Angie Drake and I'm here to talk about political action as a military spouse, how to be politically active. And I want to thank AUSA Family Readiness, especially Patty and Thea, for inviting me to be here with you guys today. This is my first ever Facebook Live event. I've never done this before, so I'm going to ask you for a little forgiveness beforehand, just in case there are any flaws in the presentation. So thank you very much. First of all, let you know a little bit about myself. I know the military community because my dad was in the United States Air Force for 21 years. He retired as a master sergeant when I was 13 years old. So I traveled all around the world with him and my family before being in California for about 7 or 8 years. And then I married my husband, who is an officer in the United States Air Force. We actually married fresh out of college, and I've been with him every year of his career. So we've been together 27 years. That means I have a long history with the Air Force specifically and with military life in general. We've had a lot of assignments to places where we've shared military bases with Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and also Coast Guard. So although I don't have the answers to everyone's questions, I should have the answers to a lot of them and know who to ask if I don't. One of the things I wanted to share with you guys today was why I, as a military spouse, became politically active. I think that a lot of people think it's a strange thing, but when you really think about it, military life is all about advocacy. We're constantly faced with difficulties, and the people who solve our problems are congressmen. So it means that when we're faced with a problem, we have to go to politicians to solve it at the end of the day. One of the first things that taught me that was before I became a military spouse. It was when my dad was retired, and in 1995, Congress decided to get rid of free medical care for retirees. It was a horrible time for a lot of military retirees because they felt like they had been abandoned by the U.S. Congress. It was a time when it was very hard to organize a lot of people together. We didn't have the internet. It was people sitting around after work talking about all the horrible things that were happening and not really having a clue on what they could do to change it. The work that went into trying to repeal the law that made my dad have to start paying for his health care actually went to courts, and the lawyers in the courts decided that Congress couldn't make promises. Even though they made a promise, they weren't responsible for upholding a promise. And it taught me that military families have to pay attention all the time to what Congress is doing, because anything that has been promised to us in the past, even if it's in a contract, can be taken away by law at any point in time. So it's really important that we pay attention. And that's what brought me more into military, into politics and advocacy. But then I began to get more politically active, more specifically after the 2004 election our 2004 presidential election between President Bush and John Kerry. We were a young family. My husband was attending the school at Montgomery, Alabama for, I can't remember the name of it right now, it escapes me. But we were living in student housing on a military base. And I can remember when a family across from us put out campaign literature on their windows of their base house. And they very proudly did so. And I can remember being very angry at the time because I knew that it was wrong and I knew that I wasn't allowed to do the same thing. They broke convention. And they broke rules as well. There were rules saying that they shouldn't do it, but they broke sort of a rule of thumb that military families had always followed in my view up until that point in time, and that we keep politics out of military communities. And that single action, it sat with me for a long time. It made me really consider my role in political action. So when the 2008 election came around for President Barack Obama, I decided that I would be politically active, but that I would not do it on a military base. So I took my political action off base, and I've learned a lot since that point in time. I volunteered with organizations like MoveOn.org. I've helped run Keep Your Promise, which is an organization that helped bring back the COLA cuts from military retirees back in 2014. And now I'm working with an organization called Homefront Progressives. We started just after the latest presidential election out of a frustration with a lot of things that are going on politically, and generally as a way to find support from like-minded military community members. And that's where we are today. So I'm going to get ready to give you a presentation on politics, talk about a little bit about what we do at Homefront Progressives as well. While I do that, I would really like to remind people that I'm here to answer your questions. So after the presentation, I'm going to get to your questions. But if you start sending them in now via the Facebook page, we'll be all prepared and ready to go. So let's get started. Homefront Progressives is an organization that is progressive. And progressive, a lot of you are automatically going to have an idea in your head what it means. For us, progressive is neither left nor right. It's a movement that works towards justice and equality. We have a place for everybody. We fight for military and veteran benefits, for marriage equality, for gender equality, LGBTQ rights, protecting the rights of special needs kids in the military community, quality education, and there's more. There's so many issues that are important, and at the end of the day, it's the justice and equality that ties them together for us. We're action-oriented. We like to focus on ways that our members can take action within their local communities. These kinds of actions include writing letters, calling your representative to make sure that he or she knows what you're thinking, and actually encouraging people to run for office. Members of the military community, veterans, military spouses running for office. We're proud. We're proud members of the military community. There is sometimes the belief that because you label yourself as a progressive or a liberal that you cannot be patriotic. That is just simply untrue. Through our years of service, we fought to protect the freedoms of all Americans, our veterans among us. We're regardless of race, religion, sexual orientation, their ability, ethnicity, and gender. We continue to fight for everyone's rights as Americans. We're also inclusive. Currently, we're a group of veterans, military family members, and some civilians. Our community welcomes everyone who shares our values, and we think it's important to include civilians in our group because military families can't fight for what we need without the civilian population helping us. We're positive. Together, we believe we can move our country forward. And while politics and conversations about politics can turn negative very quickly, we try our very best to stay positive. We thank community leaders when they do something right, no matter what their political background is. And we support and ask for reconsideration from those that lean in the other direction. Okay, moving on to the next slide. I think a lot of you are going to have this question. It's basically, can a military spouse be politically active? Yes, you can. There are no rules and regulations preventing military family members from participating in politics, in political discussions, in writing political opinion pieces, in working for political campaigns, or anything else. The only thing that is stopping you is convention, and we'll talk more about that later. There's one other thing I feel we have to address. Unless your active duty partner has been sent on a diplomatic assignment overseas and you're going with them, then you may be prevented from taking political action. Diplomats overseas are serving on a diplomatic visa, and the rules and regulations are a little stricter. So if you're in that situation, you've probably already been briefed on what you're allowed and not allowed to do. So, can your active duty partner be politically active? Maybe, and that's a really strong maybe. I know that my military partner has decided to keep politics out of his life, personally and professionally. There are a set of laws that active duty military members do have to follow. It means they need to be very careful never to use their military connection to support a political candidate or a political position. It doesn't mean they can't support a political candidate, but they are not supposed to wear a uniform when talking about politics, and they're not to use their political rank when supporting anybody running for office. If a military service member is ever in doubt what they're allowed to do, then they should just contact their Judge Advocate General's office and ask the military lawyer. If your partner is in the Reserve and Guard, that's actually a little bit different. Hold on just a second, I lost my place on my slides. Okay. Yeah, when you're in the Reserve and Guard, there are a different set of rules to follow. You can run for office, and actually you'll find a lot of people who have chosen to run for local offices in their cities, city councils. We actually have a few representatives in the House of Representatives that are uniformed members of the Reserve or of the Guard. They too are not supposed to use their uniform when they're speaking in a partisan or political manner. Okay, so I believe the next slide is how to be a politically engaged milspouse. So we have some ideas, and I actually talked to a lot of the people in our private group on what they would recommend to you guys. One of the top issues was actually to educate yourself about the issues. A lot of people think they understand the issues based on little things they see online, stories shared by family and friends, and very often the issues go deeper than that. Take some time to read some articles. Go ahead and read articles from multiple viewpoints as well, just to inform yourself on what's going on. I want you to also use your values, know what your values are and how they intersect with your politics. Everyone has a set of values that they live by. My values happen to be a progressive set of values, and it's very important that I use these ideas of equality and justice when talking about politics. Okay. I also want you guys to start calling your elected officials, and feel free to call them regularly. Everyone has the right to call their U.S. representatives and their U.S. senators. You can also call state elected representatives and senators. You can call your governor. You can call the president. These are all people that make daily decisions that affect our lives. For military families, the most important people are obviously those serving in our U.S. Congress. And developing a relationship with the staff on the other end of that phone is perfectly acceptable. They may get to know your name, and that's okay. This next one, write letters to the editor. A lot of you, your eyes are just going to roll into the back of your heads. Oh my God, that's so outdated. How can you even think we should write letters to the editor? Well, it's because they make a difference, and they still are very useful. If you go to any small town newspaper, especially one that's online, you'll see that they have a very active letter to the editor section. It's actually one way that small town papers are staying relevant in today's internet world. One of the reasons I suggest military community members send letters to the editor is because your experiences go beyond your small community where you came from. Most of us come from small towns, and our life experiences in other states, in other cities, sometimes in other countries, very much have shaped how we feel and think about politics. Writing letters back home, explaining the connections with a specific thing going on, so like healthcare right now. If you are specifically wanting your U.S. representative to vote a certain way on an issue, write a letter to the editor. Use your representative's name in that letter. Tie it to an article that the newspaper published and send it in. And I will almost guarantee you that that local paper will not only print you in the printed version of the newspaper, but will put your letter online. And then that letter can be shared widely beyond just the small audience at your local town. The last thing I want you to do is to share appropriately online. This can be really tough in today's heated, trying to find the right words to say this politely, because we all get very upset when it comes to politics, and we see this post that comes onto our feed and it makes us angry, and we immediately, and you can tell I want to do this too sometimes, click on a button and say, send this to all of my friends. I want you guys to start thinking about what you're sharing and how it intersects with your values. Is the person who is so angry and upset discussing the matter in a way that reflects how you feel? Is it just angry to be angry? Are they just ranting to rant? Are they looking for solutions? Are they looking to motivate people to take action? I want you to share things that you feel fit your values. And if we start doing that more often, I think we'll start seeing less hate on our Facebook pages. Okay. So there's lots of things you can do offline as well. Being politically active isn't just about sharing on a Facebook page or just about writing letters. It's about working within your communities. So one of the ways most people think about doing it is joining the Democratic Party or joining the Republican Party. And that isn't a good fit for all of us. So I wanted to suggest some other ways. You can join nonpartisan political organizations with local chapters like the League of Women Voters or the National Organization for Women. You can join a nonpartisan political organization like MoveOn.org or the Tea Party. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, wait a minute, they're partisan. No, they're not. Partisan means that you are an organization that revolves around the Democratic Party, around the Republican Party, around the Constitution Party, around the Green Party. You have a specific political party that you are organizing for. Organizations like the MoveOn and MoveOn.org and like the Tea Party are open to members that are not politically affiliated with a single party. And so feel free to go ahead and join them as well. Okay. You can also join local veterans organizations, especially ones that have local chapters in your town. These are things, I want you to go out and meet people so that you're talking politics face to face with people and you're looking for solutions within your community. So, you know, the VFW, the American Legion, and DAV, they're older organizations, they've been around for a long time. They actually want to have other people, younger generations, joining and helping them in political action. You can find which local groups are meeting in your communities a couple of different ways. You can go to all these websites directly, but you can also go to meetup.com or the indivisibleguide.com, and you can find who's actually already meeting in your area. Very often they're posting exactly what they're doing, what their goals are, and you can see if their goals meet your values, fit your system of values, and go and meet some people in your local community who aren't necessarily military, but may be great to get to know because they may end up helping you when we need help on a military issue. Okay. Some other ways for engaging in your community. We've got nonpartisan and partisan ways. Nonpartisan, you can register voters. I was a voter registrar in Texas. It was actually one of the best things I ever did. I really enjoyed it. I was registering voters out at the soccer field when my kids were playing soccer. It's an easy way to be politically engaged without having to choose a side, but to get people more engaged. You can actually, once you're a voter registrar, you can actually hold voter registration events on base. So as new people are coming in, you can ask to go to welcome events, you can ask to go to your enlisted spouse organization or your officer spouse organization, and at their welcome event in September, August, September, say, hey, I want to register voters at that event, and offer to do that. It's a great way to get engaged. You can volunteer as a poll worker in your local community. We need poll workers out there. We need people who are very interested in protecting our rights to vote and making sure that everyone has an easy time voting. You can also organize candidate town halls for local elections. I did this once in San Antonio, Texas for a mayoral election. In Texas, when you run for mayor, you don't run as a Republican or as a Democrat, you run without party. We invited all of the candidates running to meet members of the local military community to answer questions about from the military community. Those are great ways. Politicians very often want to meet people in the military community, and this is a great way to integrate your work on base with what's going on off base, but not necessarily do it in a partisan way. Partisan politics, you can feel free, military spouses out there, and active duty within limits to volunteer for a local campaign. You can offer to be a surrogate where you're speaking for a for an elected, not an elected official, for someone running for office. You can speak at their events for them and basically say, this is why I think you should elect so-and-so. As a military spouse, I support these values, and this candidate agrees with these values as well. And you can consider running for office. Believe it or not, there are actually some active duty military spouses that have decided to run for small local offices in their communities, school board, town council. If you're pretty sure you're going to be in an area for 3 to 4 years, this is something that's very doable, and you should consider doing so. If you're no longer, if you're a retiree spouse, a veteran, then this is a much easier decision to make. And there are many, many tools out there to help you. And if you have questions about that, go ahead and ask, and we'll see about getting you hooked up with people who can help you out. And the next slides are all resources for you guys. And we'll let you go ahead and look at those at your own convenience, and we'll start taking some questions. We've got them piling up over here, which is a good thing. Let's see. First question that we have here is, how can you build your network in the community when considering running for an election? I think it's an excellent question. One of the best things you can do is get out in the community and go to meetings of organizations that you know are active in the community that you're at. So, and not necessarily just partisan or politically motivated events. So let's think about a specific example. In San Antonio, some of the better ways for building community in that area. I'm going to think on this one. Okay. How do I reach out to Homefront Progressives for help on a specific issue? Well, first of all, you can find us on the Facebook page. We're at Homefront Progressives. It's easy enough. I think they're also providing the link for us on the AUSA website. You can ask questions directly on the public page. And if you have a friend who's already in our private group, you can actually go ahead and just send us an email and ask, and we'll see about getting you added to the private group if you're interested. And are there opportunities for military spouses to run for local elective offices other than mayor or city council? Well, that depends on your local community, but there are. Normally, I would say the school board is a really big place where military spouses could be running for office. That is one of the biggest intersections with the military community and the public community. It's very important that we have good schools for military kids, and that we have school board members who understand the needs of the military community. So running for school board is great. Town council is actually, it says other than city council, but city council is a pretty important job, and there are a lot of decisions made at the city council level that also affect local military communities, and having a military voice in those places could be good. You might also want to consider county positions. A lot of counties actually have governing boards, and running, so taking a look at your local county and seeing what's going on there. State level elections would probably be better for those who have a lot of time to dedicate. If you're planning on staying in an area for a while, you know you're going to, your active duty partner is going to geobatch for a while, and you're planning on settling down in a single place, running for state election might also be an option. But if you're going to be moving around quite a bit, that makes it a little harder. Let's go back to community building. One of the things that happens for military spouses in a community is that we very often look for support on the military base. If you're really considering running for office, I want to encourage you to take yourself off of the military base and go to community meetings of all kinds. So if you're living in a place that runs almost everyone has a function every year that the town or the city is a big part, everyone takes part. Consider going to the places where they're organizing those things. You're going to find people who are interested in their communities, interested in promoting their communities, and wanting and have an idea of how politics works in the area. So in San Antonio, there's a big Fiesta Days. Try to get on a Fiesta Days planning committee and see if you can meet people who have a better idea on how you might be able to get involved. Trying to think if there's anything else. And this is where I don't like Facebook Live, because I can't have you guys have conversations with me as we're doing this. So this makes it a little tough. I feel like in some ways I know that some of you have questions and you're not asking them and you think they're not going to get here in time. But please feel free to ask some more questions if you have them. And what I'd like to ask is if anyone does have any questions, and there's no one in the room to ask one. So, yeah. Okay, are we good to go? I'm trying to see if we're going to wrap this up, and I think that we are. This is what we're going to do. I will be around today and for the next couple of days to answer questions on the Facebook page. So I want you to keep the questions coming in. And often I'm better in writing than I am speaking anyway. So we'll make sure that you guys get the answers to the questions you have. Please take the time to call your congressman about the issues that matter. Please check out the AUSA Family Readiness. They actually have a list of issues that they're working on that are pertinent to all military families. They're not partisan issues. They're issues that are important to all of us and that we all need to be calling Congress about.